Eat more chips, don't let the salad win. That's the message in terms of nature of the food maybe that we consume in Wales.
Oh, in Wrexham town they say there's a team that likes to play association football with precision. On the terraces they call, come on Nixie, hit that ball, and we're off to the second division. Oh, we'll see the Reds with beer, and you will swear that you will see the vision. Top of Division 3, led by Jan-Feb, we're off to the second
Hello and welcome to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast for one of the most recognisable flags in the Welsh football supporters universe. In a week where men in short leather pants and embroidered suspenders risked dislocating digits as they vied for the top prize at Germany's championship in the sport of fingerhaken, or finger wrestling. Around 180 competitors took part in the 64th German Championship in Pang, about an hour's drive southwest of Munich. Two competitors sit opposite sides of a table and each hooks one finger, usually the middle finger, through a small leather loop. As soon as the referee signals the start, each contestant tries to pull each other across the table as fast as they possibly can. The whole thing usually only lasts a few seconds and dislocated fingers are common. Special attendants sit behind each athlete to catch them should one of them suddenly lose its grip and fly backwards, and the winner moves to the next round. By custom, only men usually take part. My two colleagues usually enter this event, but last year they were banned after trying to use their unconventional finger bang technique. It's Jamie and Daz. You probably don't even remember what I was talking about because I've had to cut this in. It's interesting.
Not a clue. I remember you waffling about something to do with finger blasting, and that was it.
I mean, we're going to believe we'll believe what you say, that that's what those German terms actually mean, because obviously we've got no way of verifying that.
Well, the team has officially left for Las Vegas for their promotion party, and social media is already awash with pictures of them enjoying themselves as they head towards America. Harry Ashfield has travelled with the squad, but as he's only 19, I feel that the water park is going to be very, very busy for him over the next few days. Parky and the management team have also flown out to Dubai and have met with the Dubai Reds today for a drink, and imagine a fair bit of golf as well. Jamie, for the staff and the management of Wrexham AFC, a party and holiday, well deserved?
Absolutely well deserved. I think the lads, it's obviously the Vegas trip is obviously something that the squad and the team talk about, because I watched the AAA today from the Charlton game, and obviously when they're doing the celebrations in the changing rooms after the game, they're singing "Viva Las Vegas." So I think it must be a hot topic amongst the squad. Obviously, there's a few players that have done both of the previous ones. There's a couple of players that have done the last one. But obviously a lot of new players that have not done any. So yeah, they get really treated well and looked after, don't they? We've seen that from the previous visit, so don't know what they've got in store from this time. And likewise with Parky and the staff. I think they've been to Portugal the last couple of years, so obviously going one better this year, going to Dubai. Not that there's anything wrong with Portugal, of course, but yeah, absolutely well deserved, and I'm sure they'll have an amazing time.
At home, the Stoke Kairas pitch has already been removed. It'll be interesting to see if any presentation pieces from the grass are produced from it. The fan zone and the temporary cop are also disappearing really, really fast. Daz, would you expect the bill to move quite swiftly now, as it's been a long time, this thinking about this happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends if they can get started before tea break, and then, it depends on how many people are sort of, leaning on shovels and waiting, it depends. I mean, I'm sure the plans are in place. I'm sure everything they want is in order. You never know with these projects, so that's the thing. It took so long to get that stand in. It might take some time to get it out. Then there's all of the issues that they had with, what was it, pipes and waterways and waste underneath. I mean, you just haven't a clue how these things are going to go. So don't envy the task, but exciting times, because you just know it's going to be worth it at the end. That's the key thing.
And on Sunday, Wrexham had their annual Players' Season Awards ceremony at the Stoke Kairos just before they pulled the pitch up. As well as awarding some incredible work this season, the crowd were treated to live music from Rhythm Train, Danny Gruff, and Lily Jones's brother, Oshan Powsey Jones. Everything was headlined then by the Royston Club, presented by Jason Mohammed and Chris Mellaband, with Mia Roberts and Andy Morell as guests. The awards came thick and fast. Alex Moore won the Bob Clark Best Academy Player of the Year. Elliot Lee won Top Goal Scorer of the Season with 9 goals. Incredible that we got promoted to the Championship and a leading goal scorer only scored 9. Max Cleworth won both Players Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year, making it 3 wins from the last 4 seasons for that award. Steve Edwards' goal of the season was Paul Mullins' volley versus Blackpool in December, and Player of the Year, as voted for by the fans, was Ollie Rathbone. To cap the day off perfectly, Geraint Parry, who's the club secretary, was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award, something very, very well deserved. Jamie, great day out, if not a little chilly in the cold road stand, to be sure. Did any of the awards that were issued surprise you at all?
I'm sorry, but before I comment on the awards, your picture there, that pano picture, look at this poor woman on the bottom right. She looks like a crocodile. She looks like she got a big crocodile hat on. That tickled me when I saw that. What did you ask me? Any awards that I didn't agree with?
Yes. Well, not agree with. Yeah, any that surprised you, really.
I mean, it was a funny old day, wasn't it? I mean, like you say, I forgot how bloody cold that stand could get. It was a lovely day outside and it was nice temperature, but it was so cold in that stand. So that was the first thing. Yeah, I mean, it was nice that they did something, but it was a bit. There were a few things, weren't they, that were a bit odd. Like they didn't communicate the proper start time properly, so there were huge queues outside. There were huge queues for food. It was just a bit of a strange setup, and it seemed to go on. Hey, they got pictures. Where'd you get them from?
I don't know. Some bloke next to me was snapping away like there was no tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that Mullin one's good, isn't it? It felt like it could have been condensed into a shorter period of time, but still, it was nice that they did something. I think both you and I were lucky enough to go to the parade when we won the National League, and I appreciate that parades generally are held back for winning a league, but then look at Bradford's celebrations for finishing third in League Two.
Yeah.
So I think it could have been a slightly better scenario, but look, it was nice they did something. As for the actual awards themselves, I think why on earth Jason Mohammed was hosting it is beyond me. As a staunch
Bluebird fan that he is,
Cardiff fan. But yeah, surely someone like Bryn Law, if he was available, or someone like that. But anyway, or anybody. But the awards were, I mean, Max getting Player of the Season, that was a nice touch because you could see from the little video piece they did for him, you could see what he means to the squad and how fondly thought of he is amongst the playing staff, both from a player contribution perspective and as a person. So that was a nice one to win. The goal of the season one was an interesting one because we were all debating that in and around where we were sat. I think you and the missus were adamant it was should have been Sam Smith's kung fu kick against Charlton. Personally, I still stand by Jack Marriott's goal on the first game of the season, but Mullin got it, and obviously it was nice for him to get a little moment with the fans. He definitely got the biggest cheer of the day, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Player of the season, with Ollie Rathbone. Again, for me personally, I voted for Max as player of the season just purely because I thought over the course of the whole season, his performances were very consistent. Defensively, he was brilliant, and he scored 8 goals. As much as Ollie Rathbone's been fantastic in the sort of certainly second half of the season. Personally, for me, it was Max, but I was more than happy to see Ollie Rathbone get it. What other awards were there? Obviously, Geraint you mentioned, which was just lovely, wasn't it? He's so highly regarded amongst everybody and anybody to do with Wrexham, whether you're a fan, a player, past or present. And you could just see as soon as he walked up to the stage, you could see all the players and all the staff standing up and giving him a round of applause. Really nice that he got some, some well deserved recognition. What else was there? Elliot Lee, top scorer. I mean, again, just emphasises how crazy a season it's been that our top scorer got 9 goals and we finished second and got promoted. But again, nice for him to get a little moment because obviously he's had a tough season. That was it, wasn't it? Was there any others?
Academy Award? Did you should mention that?
Oh yes, the Academy. Yeah, of course, the Academy Award. Again, I don't know a huge amount about what was the lad's name that won it?
Alex Moore.
Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about Alex Moore. I mean, I think you and I are both looking at each other thinking expecting Rio Owen to get it purely because of the goals he scored. But obviously, he was spoken about very fondly again, a little bit like Max, not only for his playing contributions, but for him as a person. So I'm sure whoever's behind picking that, is trust their judgment. But yeah, it was a nice way to sign off the season. And if when Matty James retires, he's got a career there in child tossing.
Daz, not sure if you've seen the 4 goals that were contenders for the goal of the season. Jack Marriott's volley versus Wickham on the first day of the season. Mo Fowle's bicycle kick versus Wolves under 21s, which he was offside, let's be honest. Sam Smith's flying volley versus Charlton Athletic and Paul's volley versus Blackpool. If you have, do you think the right goal won, as in Paul's from Blackpool?
No, I haven't seen them all. I've seen the Sam Smith kung fu kick, which I still think is phenomenal in terms of timing, over the shoulder, the occasion. I think all of these things build up to it. For him to have come in and had the impact he's had, that for me from memory is the one standout goal. So I'd have gone with that one.
Now, you may remember on episode 100, we gave away 2 Wrexham shirts, a replica 90s away shirt and a 2025 match-worn women's shirt signed by Phoebe Davis. Despite asking the winner to get in touch and claim the prize, they haven't done so. So, like most of the stuff we do, as we mess it up the first time, we're going to draw it again. And guess what? That doesn't know what's coming. That means the return of the Fisher-Price Wheel of Fortune! Hooray!
Before you spin it, have you taken him off the wheel? Because it would just be comedy value that he would win it again.
I've removed him. So, Jamie, would you like to wish everyone some good luck?
Goody God, good luck and God bless everybody.
Daz, any thoughts before the draw?
Oh, I don't want to jinx it.
Okay, so like deja vu, it's 3, 2, 1. Here we go! Round and round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. Please, I want to give away these bloody shirts. Nobody seems to want them. It's getting slower and slower and slower and slower and slower. And the winner is... Oh, 5391. Congratulations. By default, you are the winner of these 2 fantastic shirts. So please email us your postal address at eatmorechipspodcast, all one word, at gmail.com, and we'll get them in the post to you. And of course, if we don't hear from him in the next 6 weeks, we might be doing this the 3rd time.
If he doesn't get in touch, we'll just give him to Scott 5390.
Come and see the rest with me, and you will swear that you have seen a vision. We don't just know they feel when they're beaten by the field. We're off to the 2nd division.
It was party time away as Wrexham had one more match of the season to play at Sincilbank versus Lincoln City. Phil Parkinson made one change from the historic win versus Charlton. Arthur Okonkwo in goal, Max Cleworth, Dan Scarr and Lewis Brunt at the back, Ryan Longman and James McLean on the wings, George Dobson, Matty James and Ollie Rathbone in the middle, Sam Smith and Elliot Lee replacing the injured Jay Rodriguez up front. Win or lose, we're on the booze, and it certainly looked that way in the first half as Wrexham shook off the celebrations to try and win the game. It was laboured, not too coordinated. It certainly looked like they'd only just rolled out the pub, that's for sure. A dose of group Alka-Seltzer later, and Wrexham came out much better in the second half with goals from Elliot Lee and Ryan Longman, his first goal for the club. All in front of a packed crowd of priests, Mexicans, dinosaurs, North Koreans, clowns, referees, spacemen, the Easter Bunny, travel agents, traffic cones, and the Mario Brothers twice. Wrexham finished the season in second place with 27 wins, 11 draws and 8 losses, including 19 clean sheets by Arthur Okonkwo, 3 by Callum Burton and 2 by Mark Howard. A goal difference of plus 33 and 92 points, 19 points behind champions Birmingham City, but 5 points ahead of Stockport County in third. Jamie, football is obviously easier when you're hungover. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, well, like you say, it was a strange game to watch. I mean, I wasn't able to watch it live, but obviously, I'm sure if I had watched it live, and you'll be able to say, because obviously you were there dressed as God knows what you were dressed as.
Henry VIII. I was King Henry VIII. It was very explanatory.
Henry VIII, yeah. I mean, obviously, it was a heavy costume.
It was very heavy. There were 3 layers to it.
And to be fair, I'm just glad this isn't a full-length picture, because when I saw the full-length picture, I genuinely thought you'd stolen the shoes and socks from a little girl. They were, like, terrible. But no, to be fair, this fancy dress lark, it proper made me laugh, because I think what I took from watching the game back was it's so rare, isn't it, in football these days, where you can go into a game with literally nothing riding on it and just enjoy it no matter what happens, and that's very much what the Wrexham fans were clearly doing. But the fancy dress tickled me, because obviously I've seen loads on social media, but what was really funny was when I was watching the highlights back, and every so often the camera would just pan into the crowd for a few seconds, and every time it was just, I mean, the first one that got me was Big John, who was dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. So that tickled me. That was the first one. And then the second one was, like you say, what's his name? Kim Jong-un, or Ian, or whatever his name is, with his security. That was funny. And then you said there about Mario.
They were all legit. They were all legit as well. They were wearing earpieces, and they were properly surrounding him. So he was in the middle, and he had 2 at the front, sides, back, and they were all talking to them, going, he's moving. They'd all move with him. And apparently, I don't know whether you heard on the Fearless guys yesterday, but the stewards were like, why does he need security? They didn't get the fact that it was just a big piss take, which is hilarious. So, no, he was brilliant. Gangong Reds, it said on the flag as well.
That's it, yeah. And obviously, you said there about Mario and Luigi, but on one of the pans into the crowd, I also saw Wario. Do you remember Mario's evil brother, Wario, with his purple and yellow outfit? So between traffic cones and dinosaurs and
there were jockeys, there were horse jockeys as well. Lots of horses and jockeys I saw. It was just crazy, absolutely mad.
Do you know what? It was nice, because obviously everybody was having a good time. But I think what's really important to call out is the fact that, at the start, before the game started, there was the minute silence, wasn't there, for the Bradford disaster, which obviously Lincoln were involved in, weren't they? And it was
they had 2 fans. They had 2 fans, unfortunately, who perished in the Bradford fires. So, yeah.
And to be fair, the reason I call it out is because it was impeccably honoured by the Wrexham fans as well. In proper party mode. I'm sure they've been drinking all the way there, and in full fine voice, but they observed it perfectly. And I think it's important to call that out, because we're very quick to call out fans when they're not so gracious. But that was really nice. But the game itself, I mean, you said it yourself there, that the first half, I think the lads were still in the fat ball, if I'm honest. The first half highlights literally were 2, and I used the efforts very, very tamely, 1 for each team. Not a lot going on. I mean, lineup wise, I think Parky did, although we were debating last week, weren't we, about whether he'll be sentimental and play a couple of the Mullins and the Palmers, but I think we universally agreed he wouldn't do that, and true to form, I think he very much wanted to get the job done and finish with a points record points haul. But yeah, the first half non-existent really. I think obviously in the second half, I don't think he's necessarily gone in on them 2-footed at half time. But I think he's probably been quite stern and said, look, there's still a job to do here, and just probably got into them a little bit. And they certainly came out in the second half. And I think you have to be fair as well to say, I think Lincoln did as well in the second half. They came out and were a better team. I mean, overall, they weren't bad. I mean, they couldn't hit a cow's ass with a banjo, but they weren't bad. I think if they could have, I mean, I think what did they have? 17. Where's your stats there? 17. Yeah, 17 shots in total and 4 on target. I mean, that tells its own story. And the ones that were on target were very tame, and Arthur gobbled them up no problem. But yeah, I think my kind of take on the second half from our perspective, okay, we rode our luck a little bit because if Lincoln had been a bit more clinical, we might have got punished. But it was a very professional and efficient performance from us. 53 minutes, we get the first goal. Lovely bit of work from Longman on the right again. Who again, I thought had another good game. He's been a very strong signing for us, I think, since he's come in January. Great ball in. It was a brilliant run by Elliot Lee. I know there was maybe some question marks when the lineup dropped. That obviously we knew Rodriguez was out. Interesting that obviously Elliot Lee's the one that's been brought in. You've got to ask yourself the question, if you're Jack Marriott, what are you thinking about that? But obviously two different types of player. But Elliot Lee was the one that was picked, and like I say, you got to give him some credit for his run. His run was beautiful to kind of hold his run and arrive in the box a little bit later. And as we've seen before, for a little fella, he's he's good in the air. He's a good header of the ball. But yeah, we got the breakthrough, and it was only 8 minutes later the game was done because we got the second goal. Another good move, James McLean with a good interception. Obviously, he woken up along with the rest of the team. Some nice bit of interchange between him and Elliot Lee, eventually getting it out to Longman, who slotted it in for his first Wrexham goal, and then proceeded with his shirt off over his head celebration and his yellow card. It wasn't necessarily a spectacular goal, but it was nice to see him get a goal because, like I said before, I think since he's joined the club in January, he's had a big contribution, I think, to the sort of second half of the season. And he's put in some really good performances. I think we've got a real quality player there for the future. So it was nice to see him get a goal for his hard work since he's joined us. And then, as the game went on, like I said before, I think if Lincoln could score or had a bit of a threat, I think it could have been a different story. But they didn't, so it wasn't. And we ended up, 2-0. Like I say, a very, very professional way to finish the season, and to finish the season on, 92 points is crazy. It was hard to pick players out of the performance that sort of stood out, because I think, like I say, they were all pants in the first half and then all pretty average in the second half. I think Arthur probably deserves a call out, although the saves he had to make weren't necessarily spectacular. He still had to make 3 or 4, reasonably important saves. And I thought James McLean in the second half, I thought he carried on his good performances against Charlton and Blackpool in particular with another sort of solid performance. And yeah, there we go. It was a nice way to end the season. I think obviously for you guys that were there, I think you everyone seemed to enjoy it. But a great way to finish off what has been just a unbelievable season.
Daz, another clean sheet for Wrexham. Putting them now on a record tally for clean sheets. Has having a really mean defence made the difference for them this year, do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, this that classic saying, isn't it, that, you can, it all starts at the defence, but, in the sense that you can't win titles with defences, but you can certainly lose titles with poor defences. So, it's an important part of the team. And it was one of the things you guys were talking about consistently, about the chopping and changing and consistency at the back. And, over the last couple of years, we've sort of seen that evolve. And for it now to have materialized in a really, really mean, tough place to, tough team to play against. You've got a few options for rotation as well. So when injuries struck or a little, or suspensions, you've got options as well. I think that is absolutely then the foundations for being able to build up then, what with your midfields and your attack. And yes, it's still bizarre that your attacking numbers are still bizarrely so low. I mean, I think goals for or whatever, it was something like 67. I think it was only Huddersfield in the top 12 that were like lower than you and something like that. So, it with those numbers of goals for, having a brilliant goals against is what won it for you, I suppose, in many ways. I mean, literally only Birmingham had fewer goals scored against. So, it was absolutely the platform, and it's definitely something that can be built on now. But don't forget, the opposition gets that little bit tougher next year.
Now, in the Eat More Chips podcast, it's time for today's newspaper, tomorrow's chip paper, where we catch up on Cymru and Wrexham football news. First up, the awards come thick and fast this month as Phil Parkins has been nominated the EFL League One Manager of the Month for April after remaining unbeaten and taking Wrexham to a third successive promotion. Also nominated in this category are Chris Davies from Birmingham City, Richie Wellens from Leyton Orient and Gary Bowyer from Burton Albion. Nominated as PFA Fans Player of the Month for April is Sam Smith. He scored vital goals in April, including versus Burton Albion, Cambridge United, and of course, that key one at Charlton Athletic. The public can vote for Sam by going to the wrexhamafc.co.uk website and click on the link provided. Jamie, Phil missed out on Manager of the Season. Do you think he's got a shot for Manager of the Month for April?
No.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that.
No, I think April will go to what's his name? Bloody hell, it's another good picture on the left there of Parky, that, isn't it? Fair play. I mean, the Sam Smith one's all right, but Parky one's good. Yeah, no, I think the Gary, but is it Gary Bowyer, the Burton manager?
Yeah, Burton
I
Albion,
think I think he will get Manager of the Month because I think I know it's not just been the performances in April that saved them, but I think to rubber stamp their survival in the league, given the position they were in, I think fair play to him. He's done a cracking job. Parky should be in with a shout with it because obviously he's clinched a promotion, a third successive promotion with Wrexham. But personally, I think they'll give it to the Burton manager. But look, if he wins it, it'd be great because he we all love him anyway.
Sam Smith has really made a difference in joining Wrexham in January. Obviously, he did a lot for Reading as well before he came to us. Do you think that's enough for him with the fans to win the Player of the Month for April?
Yes, I think like I say, it helps to score some great goals. So you stand out. So the fact that he's scoring key goals at key moments. And I think he's as good a shot as anybody. In certainly, he was on the ascendancy. If the season was a little bit longer, you'd think he'd have a shot. A bit more of a shot at some of the the annual prizes. But no, I think he's he's definitely in the mix. And I think he's a well-deserved nomination. So hopefully he'll get the win.
Cymru and Swansea City midfielder Joe Allen has announced his retirement from professional football after making 77 international appearances for his country and featuring at 3 major tournaments, according to the FAW website. Allen has made over 220 senior appearances for Swansea over 2 spells, having initially left for Liverpool in 2012 before returning from Stoke City in 2022. A fan favourite with the Red Wall, Allen made his senior international debut for Cymru under John Toshak as a substitute against Estonia in 2009. Over the course of the next 16 years, Allen would become an iconic figure and played a key role as Chris Coleman's side reached the semi-finals of Euro 2016 with his performances earning him a place in the UEFA Team of the Tournament. Joe was also an integral part of the Cymru teams that qualified for Euro 2020 and the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Although retiring after the World Cup, he answered the call to return to the international fold in October 2024. Under Bellamy, Allen featured against Montenegro and Iceland in the UEFA Nations League and against North Macedonia in the current World Cup campaign. Daz, try and sum up the Cymru legend that is Joe Allen.
How do you sum up the career of Jesus in this way? I I think first of all we have to give credit to Wrexham. They gave him the kickstart he needed at the early stages of his career, with his loan period and 2 appearances. I think he learned a lot from that time because that kicked his career on into the stratosphere. So thank you, Wrexham, for that. The Welsh nation thanks you. No, I think he's a phenomenal ambassador for the game. As a Welsh speaker, I always felt he was always a very important figurehead for us in terms of Welsh media. But also I just think in terms of the little guy, the fact that there were so many big, brutes in terms of midfielders, but you just had, the sort of the silky deft touch. He was, he glided across, the pitch. He was an incredibly gifted and skilled player, and if anybody's only watched his last couple of appearances for Wales as an example of that, please don't. It was, that is a man at literally coming out of retirement, realizing maybe that wasn't the right decision, and then has now retired. So, I'm going to erase those moments because that should not be a blemish on the fact that he's had such a sterling career, at every level for Wales. I mean, obviously Swansea, hold him dear, and the fact that he left Swansea to come to play for Liverpool, which I was very excited about. I love it when we have a Welsh player in the Liverpool side, and was there for 4 or 5 years and was brilliant. Was absolutely brilliant. But his time at Swansea, obviously returning to Swansea was the perfect finish for him. But no, for the majority of his career, he was at Stoke, and you kind of think how could a player like him have such a glittering career was playing at Stoke? But that was the thing, he was just an industrious, really, he was a terrier. He was an absolute, he had an engine on him that players would die for, and yes, and of course he played for Wales at every level, 17s, 19s, 21s, all the way through. He even played for Great Britain in the Olympics, if we're going to remember all of yeah, but I just think that shows the level of where his game was at. He is one of our greatest. And when they say 2/3 of, 2/3 of the world is covered by water and the rest was covered by Joe Allen. It's testament to the fact that he was such a brilliant grafter. He played, through injuries. He played through, the pain barrier many a time, and was part of the holy trinity of Bale, Ramsey, and Allen when we at all of those major tournaments where he just epitomised Welsh football in that golden era that kicked off. I hope that's an ongoing opportunity now, but he was so instrumental to all of that, and other players aspire to be him. Pirlo and all these other greats, would just want to be would want to be, they were just a poor version of our Joe Allen, and that's how I'll always remember him, as a brilliant servant for his nation. But and a genuinely nice guy by all accounts.
The
And
Welsh
one of the
Shabby.
best. Welsh Shabby, and one of the best Welsh football songs as well. Give me hope, Joe Allen. You can't. You
can't
fault
get it better than that, let's be honest.
No, not at all. Definitely not. Well, happy retirement, Joe. You absolutely deserve everything. Put your feet up, enjoy yourself. You have massively earned it. You will never have to buy a pint in Wales, ever. And you know that, and we know that. And so good luck to you, and thank you for everything you've done for the Welsh game. As always, with all the theatricality of Mystic Meg, as it's the end of the season, we wrap it up with a look back at 2025 and the last 4 months from January to April. The new year dawned with disruptions in football due to the weather, but Wrexham men stuttered with a win versus Peterborough, followed by a loss versus Shrewsbury Town, a draw at home to Birmingham City, and a loss away at Stevenage. Wrexham women had started to turn a corner in the league, but lost to Swansea City in the Adran Trophy semi-final and drew 1-1 with Cardiff Met in the league. Cymru Women's Under-17s played a mini-tournament in Portugal. Phil Parkinson was nominated for December's Manager of the Month. Paul Mullins' goal versus Blackpool won December Goal of the Month. The club made a bit of a gaffe, selling tickets for 3 games simultaneously just after Christmas, when for many cash is very tight. Jake Bickerstaff was loaned out to Altrincham. The new designs for the Cop were submitted. Billy Waters and Jon Daddy Bodvarsson left the club by mutual consent. Jack Marriott came back from playing from a long-term injury. Goalkeeper Brad Foster signed a short-term deal. Colleen Allen joined the Wrexham AFC board, representing the Allen family's new investment in the club. Wrexham Academy Under-18s continued to win in the Youth Alliance League. Callum Edwards was loaned out to Bala Town. James McLean was involved in a car accident, but thankfully was okay. Sam Dolby remained on loan at Dundee United. Jacob Mendy and Jack Marriott signed new contracts, and we welcomed Ryan Longman from Hull in City into the club. James Jones left to join Burton Albion, and at the 11th hour, right at the very end of January, Jay Rodriguez from Burnley and Sam Smith from Reading were welcomed to Wrexham AFC. Jamie, a busy month with some new faces saying hello, and some old faces and some very warm faces that we're going to miss saying goodbye. What story from January grabbed you most?
Well, when you sent me this and you said, I've got to pick out a highlight from January, I looked back at the fixtures and nearly cried, I'll be honest. Because it was a tough one when you look back at the fixtures in January, because that was when we were playing not particularly well. You know, we lost 2-1 to Barnsley on New Year's Day. We beat Peterborough, but then we had that horrible loss to Shrewsbury, drew 1-1 with Birmingham, lost at home to Stevenage. So on the performances on the field, I think for me the two kind of standout moments from January, one football related, one on the pitch, kind of one off the pitch. So I think the on the pitch one was, for me, was probably the second half performances in the Birmingham home game and in the Barnsley away games. Because although we were in a period that during January where, well, November, December, January, where we hadn't and weren't playing very well at all, those two half performances gave me a little bit of hope. I think, you know, outside of Blackpool and Charlton at the end of the season, I think those two halves of the football were probably the best football we played. So those were sort of glimmer of light in what was a very poor period. But I think the other standout for me was, and you mentioned it there in your intro, was the signing of Sam Smith. No disrespect to Jay Rodriguez. I know they came in at the same time. And Ryan Longman, you know, I think he's had a far bigger impact than Rodriguez has had. But the Sam Smith one for me, you know, we at the time we were all very couldn't believe that we just spent £2 million on a player. And you know, this was a person that was coming in to, for want of a better word, replace, you know, our talisman in Paul Mullin. And if you now look back at his contributions in the 4.5, 5 months since we signed him, you can't say that was the reason why we got promoted. There were lots of factors. But if you look at some of the goals he scored and the contributions he's made since he came into the team, it's been huge. So for me, Sam Smith signing and those two half performances against Barnsley and Birmingham, I think, were probably my highlights from January.
The cold and wet of February saw Wrexham men turn a corner with wins over Crawley, Northampton Town and Mansfield. A loss, though, to Leyton Orient and a strong push through the Arthur Daly Trophy. Don't miss that song. Beating Port Vale in the last 16, Bolton Wanderers in the quarterfinals, but lost to Peterborough United in the semi-finals. Wrexham women continued their strong push to Phase 2, beating Aberystwyth Town, TNS and Swansea City in both the league and in the quarter-final of the Bute Energy Cup. Cymru women started their League A Nations League campaign, losing to Italy, but performing so well, drawing to Sweden at the Stoke Kairas. Off the pitch, the new cup designs were revealed to the fans. Anthony Ford left the club by mutual consent. James Rainbird was loaned out to Newtown and Aaron James loaned out to Warrington Town. Doing nothing for the club's motor insurance policy, Elliot Lee was also involved in a serious car accident after James McLean's car accident and had to have some time away to recover. Sam Smith won January Goal of the Month for a goal he scored while at Reading, his previous club. Andy Cannon was fairly seriously injured and has missed the rest of the season. Cymru under-21s were drawn against Denmark, Belgium, Austria and Belarus for the Euro 27 qualifying. James Chester retired from international Welsh football. Cymru men announced 2 friendlies in the autumn versus Canada and England. And Cymru women player Hayley Ladd reached her milestone of 100 caps. Daz, Wrexham bowing out of the Cup but getting back on track in the league. Wrexham women defying expectations. And Cymru women back in the big time. What story grabbed you this month?
Yeah, I mean, you've just gone and said them all. So, like, you know,
I know,
just
yeah.
reading
What
my
did you
notes
ask
by
us
the looks
for?
of things.
Your take on it. I want your take
Well,
on it.
okay. So, I mean, I was going to highlight. I mean, I knew Jamie would mention, you know, sort of like in January, you know, for the men's games, it was a sort of a turbulent time, and I think for the women's game in February, it was quite a significant part of the season. I'm not going to mention Wrexham beating Aberystwyth 7-1. I wasn't going to mention that, or the hat trick that Ava Suckley had, and you know, and just showed the gulf between the top of the, you know, I wasn't going to mention that. But I was going to mention the notable return of the Cymru women's team back to Group A. I mean, that's the key thing about the Nations League, was that it was back at the top table, and I think that was really important. And as a forecast for the major tournament that we've got coming up, obviously in the summer, this was a test, and it was quite an important time to see where Wilco had got the team to in terms of team selection and strategies, and just, you know, we'd had such a buoyant, you know, a great finish against obviously Ireland and just making it through to those tournaments. So it was going to be interesting to see how they would play against Italy. It was going to be interesting to see how they play against Sweden. So 2 of the top teams in the world, I think they held you know, to a 1-0 draw against Italy. It's no mean feat, you know, as much as it was, you know, what was the phrase about hatches, battering down the hatches or whatever, you know, it was quite the defensive effort. Actually, the game against Sweden felt, you know, a little bit more open, but to actually take a team like Sweden and take them to a draw, admittedly that was repeated again later in the year, but an incredible feat to be able to get that result. And I just think it's given us all a real hope and real sort of belief that we're not going up, because we're in a group of death. We're in a group of death with some horrible oppositions in this major tournament. So the idea that we can compete with these top teams. Now, of course, they are going to be on their A game when they get to these tournaments, and so has Cymru. So there's a lot to be learned, and I think this Nations League was a really important time for the women's game to just see where we are, pitch ourselves against top teams, and I think it's given us all a real lift, a real sense of optimism. I'm loving the rotation in players. I'm loving the fact that she's given players, you know, time on the pitch. And if you're in the squad, you're going to get a chance, because if you're in the squad, you've earned it. So yeah, it's and it's not been one style of football either. I think it's been, you know, a range of tactics, because we're having to play against better teams. We've got to have a bit more variety. We can't be too predictable, and we can't just be simply, you know, a low block, you know, park the buses. So it was yeah. So I thought it was a very positive month for Cymru women, February. So that was my highlight.
Springtime dawned with March, and Wrexham men blew a bit hot and cold to start with, drawing to Bolton, beating Huddersfield and Rotherham, playing really poorly at Reading, and then winning 2 vital games versus Wycombe and Stockport, with the Wycombe game being particularly difficult after a Wrexham fan became seriously ill. They finished the month with a win at Exeter, which really underlined what a fantastic performance March was. Wrexham women beat TNS and for the first time Cardiff City. They also beat Pontypridd in the Bute Energy Cup semi-final and drew to Britain Ferry Llantsawel in the league. Cymru men started their World Cup qualifying campaign with a win versus Kazakhstan and a draw versus North Macedonia. Wrexham AFC had a day out at the United Nations, joining the Football for Goals initiative. Harry Ashfield signed a new contract, and Del Morgan announced her retirement from the end of the season. Wrexham AFC announced a record turnover for 2023-24 of £26.7 million, dwarfing all the other teams in League 2 and 1 that year, as well as half of the Championship, which is an incredible feat, to say the least. Daz, the domestic leagues were building up to a finish, and the national men's side began their World Cup journey. What stories interest you most about March?
For me, I thought you wanted me to do April. Did I get the wrong one?
You asked me, March.
All right, fine. Jamie, domestic leagues were building up to a finish.
Because I haven't got anything prepared.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Jamie, the domestic leagues were building up to a finish, and the national men's side began a World Cup journey. What story interested you most about March?
Well, you've already stolen the thunder by saying everything that went on in March. Two for me. One was the women beating Cardiff for the first time. I know it didn't in the end with the cup loss, or the cup final loss was a little bit of a low point, but to beat them twice this season, but obviously that being the first one in March was it was a significant win, wasn't it? Because it's they have very much been a massive nemesis since certainly since we've been back in this league. And the second for me was the away win at Wycombe. Not only was that a very, very crucial win as the season unfolded, but a very parky performance. Very much stayed in the game for a long period. But obviously, the game being halted for such a long period of time for something completely unfootball related, and all the kind of uncertainty and concern that caused, for the players to then be able to re-engage after what was how long was the delay? Was it about half an hour? It was
45 minutes.
Yeah, such a long delay. So the way that the Parky and the coaching staff managed to get the players' heads back into it, and then for the players to go and, like I say, re-engage back into the game and go and eventually then get the win in what was a crucial away 3 points. For me, that was very much one of the standout moments from March.
Fans were on the edge of their seats as April rolled round, as Wrexham men were fighting to stick a middle finger to all who had doubted promotion by drawing to Cambridge, beating Burton Albion, but drawing to Wigan and Bristol Rovers, giving the feeling that we'd missed our chance. But thanks to Wickham stuttering in their charge, Wrexham played two of the best games of the season, beating Blackpool away and Charlton Athletic at home. I'm going to start all this again because that's crap. Fans were on the edge of their seat as April rolled round, as Wrexham men were fighting to stick a middle finger to all who had doubted promotion by drawing to Cambridge, beating Burton Albion, but drawing to Wigan and Bristol Rovers, giving the feeling that we'd missed our chance. But thanks to Wickham stuttering in their charge, Wrexham played two of the best games of the season, beating Blackpool away and Charlton Athletic at home to secure the second automatic promotion spot and return to the second tier for the first time since 1982. Wrexham women beat Cardiff City for a second time in a row, but lost to TNS, finishing fourth in the Adran Premier. Their season finished by losing to Cardiff City in the Butte Energy Cup final for the second year in a row. Cymru women played their next two games in the Nations League, losing to Denmark, but only just, and then another fantastic draw, as Daz said earlier, versus Sweden. Arthur Okonkwo won the PFA Fans League One Player of the Month for March. 4 new directors were appointed to the Wrexham AFC board. Phil Parkinson won League One Manager of the Month for March and was nominated for League One Manager of the Season. Wrexham Under-19s women won the Gennaro Adran Under-19s North title for the third time in 4 years. Max Cleworth and Ryan Barnett were named in the EFL League One Team of the Season. And going into May, Wrexham men reinforced their position in the league with a win over Lincoln. Daz, a month that was both horrendous and amazing, particularly if you're a Wrexham fan. What story grabbed you this month?
I'll start with the women. Cymru women, of course, repeating the feat of of contending again in a major tournament. Yeah, it was just the narrowest of defeats against Denmark. So there was an edge of disappointment because of we now know what we're capable of doing, and then to then have another draw against Sweden, they're not going to want to play us again for a long time.
No,
It feels.
no,
So
no.
that was I think what was reassuring about that, it wasn't just a one-off, and we are able to compete with some of these top teams consistently. So that was a noticeable Cymru highlight, I think, from the women's game. But I just think in terms of April, there's no denying that at a time when others were losing their nerve, namely Wickham, that a team could go a whole month unbeaten, and hold their nerve and put themselves in contention, and just keep going the way that they did. It was impressive, and obviously the last game played in April was a game against Charlton, and for them to have achieved what you guys have, obviously you've dreamt for many, many, many years, but to have done it in such style, those last couple of games, like you said, but that 3-0 drubbing of Charlton at home, which is just, you didn't want to take it to the last game of the season. You didn't want the fact that it was an away game against, admittedly you won that game anyway, but to be able to have got the promotion at home with an impressive win, I mean, that's got to be the standout moment of your entire season, really, isn't it? So the celebrations that you guys were able to enjoy, it was an incredible, finale to I just think the consistency, the fact that yes, okay, you should be expected to beat Burton Albion. There was not, there was Bristol Rovers was a bit of a surprise, just to be a draw at home, and yes, you thought at that point it might have been a wobble, but I think just to keep going, keep within touching distance, and then to get that final, exit velocity into this final few games, it was just enough. And then just stepped up for the last couple of games. It was brilliant. So congratulations to Wrexham. Yeah, obviously well deserved for an amazing, unexpected season, a successful season. But I just think that whole month as a complete package, April was a really successful month, and gave you the footing that you needed to get the promotion.
Jamie, thinking back as we have, and obviously so much has been talked about this right across social media, but also just with me and you just talking about it. Never ever in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought that Wrexham could get a third consecutive promotion and get from the National League to the Championship in such a short period of time. So the big question, and it's one that's really racked my brain, with all the fantastic moments that we've seen with Wrexham over the last 20 to 30 years, is this the greatest season in Wrexham AFC's history, do you think?
Oh, that's like asking me, is Parky the greatest ever Wrexham manager?
That
Is
was
it
his
the
next
greatest?
question.
I know, yeah. Do you know what? I jest obviously about the Parky question because obviously that's one that's been doing the rounds, recently, and again, you and I have talked about it. It's a similar kind of answer in that I think it's very difficult to answer. Um, you know, I'm not old enough to remember the success of the late '70s. Um, you are. I'm not. That if you listen to anybody who remembers and who was around and who has recollection of that team, they speak of that time with such awe. I mean, proper European nights at the Kairos, which, Christ, if you'd have asked me a few years ago, was that a possibility? I'd have laughed at you. But genuinely, it feels like it's probably closer than it is further away at the minute. Um, but it's really hard to for me personally, it's really hard when I haven't got any kind of, like I say, knowledge of that time. Um, but it's hard to argue that this isn't. I mean, the problem you've got is you go around in circles because if you look at the National League season, we won the league, and I think a lot of football people will tell you it's the hardest, one of the hardest leagues to win. To secure automatic promotion, you have to win the league. I hate the concept of playoffs because I think it's as exciting as it is to watch when you're not involved. It's horrible if you're potentially a team that finishes sixth. You've only got to look at the championship this season. You've got Sheffield United who I think have finished 20 something points higher than the team in sixth place and could conceivably get beat because that's the nature of the playoffs. I'd like that to happen as well, by the way, because I don't like Sheffield United, but. I'm not a big fan of playoffs, but if you look at that National League season, you whatever it is, a 40 game season against Notts County as well, who that wasn't the case of we walked the league. That was a proper slugfest from start to finish of that season. And we'll the more I've thought about it, in the last week or so since we got promoted again, been thinking a lot about the last two promotions. And I look back at that National League season, and everybody's saying, like you just asked me the question there about is this season the greatest ever? I think because we've been spoiled, I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten that National League season and how significant and how special that was. But then you then move into to last season and to get promoted at back in the AFL for 15 years, and everybody's thinking, yep, consolidation, couple of seasons in here, and then we can go again, straight up again. So that's incredible. It's a I can't give you I'm not even going to give you an answer on what I think. I am not. I can't confidently and comfortably say to you it's the greatest ever season in Wrexham's history because I think there's so many arguments for and against what you're saying. It's very, very special. And the Charlton game, which Daz talked about a second ago, again, I've thought about that an awful lot in this last, couple of weeks or week and a bit since that game. And I watched the Triple A from that game today for the first time. I've not been able to see it. And watching that half an hour back, that game, the atmosphere and the before and the after, during and after of that game was incredibly special and is right up there for me. I was lucky enough to be at the Notts County game. I was lucky enough to be at the Boreham Wood game. I was lucky enough to be at the Forest Green game. All incredibly special. And that Notts County game will forever take some beating as a one-off game. But that Charlton game, everything about it, it was just something so special about that. So that one game is right up there, but I got to stop short of agreeing with your statement of is it or saying yes to is it the best season in Wrexham's history. I don't know. I don't know. Special, but I'm not sure I'd go that far.
Daz, Wrexham men being promoted, but Cardiff City men being relegated down to the League One. Merthyr Town getting into the National League North, which is fantastic. TNS winning the JD Cymru Premier. Cardiff City women winning the League and Cup for the third year in a row. TNS women obviously winning the Adran Trophy. Cymru women drawing twice versus Sweden. And Cymru men starting their campaign strongly under Bellas with a win and a draw. Would you say this has been a successful football season for Welsh football in general?
Losing our capital team down a division is a real blemish. It's borderline catastrophic. I mean, I do think it's that club should not be in that situation. Management, ownership, whatever, whoever's to blame. There's a lot to be talked about. So, and I only regret it in the sense that I was quite looking forward to the idea of Wrexham sort of pitching themselves against, Cardiff and Swansea. I mean, yes, it's great. We still got the Swansea rivalry potentially there. So but it just feels wrong that Cardiff are not there. So I think that's a disappointment. But to answer your question more broadly about the national game, I would say we've got two very exciting young managers who are, relatively unproven. I mean, Wilco's got a bit of history in terms of assisting and working with other teams, and has won division titles, so not completely a novice. And so had some pedigree and has already brought all of that experience to the women's game. Bellamy has got great experience. We all know his pedigree as a player. Played alongside some of the absolute greats, not just for Cymru, but for playing at Liverpool or Newcastle or the many other clubs he played at. But he's played at the highest level. Managing, he's come in with assistant management experience in the Prem, in Europe. So I think there's a wealth of knowledge there. But I think and I'm a massive Bellamy fan. I've watched him as a Liverpool fan, watched him as a Cymru fan. I'm still in awe of how he has brought a next level Welsh way. I mean, the Welsh way has always been renowned for its coaching badges and everything like that. But there's a philosophy in the Welsh camp now that is very exciting. Just the freedom to play out from the back, keeping possession, being brave. There's no blame in losing the ball. You just get it back next time. I mean, there's just. It is a brave game, and I do think against some really quality sides, we are going to get a drubbing every now and again. I do think we're going to have to be prepared for some really disappointing results, but not for the want of trying. I just think we leave ourselves exposed. But there is something very exciting about that. But against perhaps the lesser teams, the mediocre teams, where we should have been bolder, should have been braver in the past, we didn't, and therefore we invited 1-0. Holding on to results, giving away late goals, and we've got tales and tales of woe in those moments. But this doesn't feel like it. It feels like he's asking lots of young, talented players who, if they're playing well, no matter what division they're in, whether it's an international, whether it's the championship, whether it's the Prem, if you've got a place in the squad, you've got a chance of playing, and I just think that's given everybody an impetus. You're not going along to the camp and thinking, I'm just going along as the extra numbers. He's given some real game time, meaningful game time to a lot of players that may have thought not going to get back in the team, and yeah, there's just something really progressive, really exciting, and I think the sky's the limit. I mean, I think as long as we can keep hold of our best players in terms of injuries, but I think we've got a lot of great talent coming through in the youth ranks. We've got this team could be together for a long time, spearheaded by the likes of Harry Wilson, Ampadu, Joe Rodon.
And those players are coming back, let's not forget. Ampadu's been out for a while and he's coming back.
But also, when you think about these,
with some key players missing, haven't we?
And they're both, and like Wilson and Ampadu, for example, have 50 caps each. Plus, they're young guys who have already got so much experience at this level. And they're 27, 20, whatever, 8 for Harry Wilson, I think, Amps is a bit younger, but, that's, they're not the veterans. So we've got this quality side and the makeup of a core of players now for a good 5 years. We just have to keep Ben Davis in cotton wool the rest of the year round and just bring him out for special occasions because we do need a little bit of that leadership. We do need a little bit of that nous. But when you've got players who are playing well and winning, and when we've got the entire Leeds team in our squad, it feels like it anyway. And they did a great job of getting back into the Premiership. So there's just so many signposts. I think it could be another golden generation of players for the next 5 years, 6 years. So if we can get that to coincide with success at tournaments, happy days.
The season is done, and so is the chip shop. This year has been a titanic struggle for pundit supremacy, with Daz being dominant for a second year in a row, and Jamie and I fighting for what's left. But the trophy has to be awarded. Now is the time to find out who is this year's Master Fryer for 2024-25.
Look at that smug look on his face already. Look at that smug look on his face already.
Daz, you have led the table for most of the year. Feeling confident you've won it?
No, I haven't worked. I don't know if I've won it, and I'm not sure if I am confident because what I am confident is on a week by week, I am a good predictor of the results, and I take that. If I get beaten, it's because I had to make some random guesses at the beginning of the year before I even knew anything about your opponents, and that always feels like I have no idea. So
Typical Liverpool
let's
fan
yeah.
making excuses.
Ladies and
Nah.
gentlemen, I give you the 1-0 king. Jamie, after a poor start, do you think you've done enough to grab the title?
No, I don't think so. I'd be amazed if Dad hasn't won it. I think if Lincoln had have hit a cow's arse with a banjo and got a goal on Saturday, and I'd have got a correct result, I might have had a chance. I'll be honest, I, I do care. It would be nice to win, but just beating you is all I care about. So as long as I beat you, which I think is pretty much safe, then I don't mind too much. But yeah, no, I'll be very very surprised if Daz hasn't won it.
Asshole.
Who does?
Right.
Very nice, is it?
No, you. No, you.
Cradle it like a baby.
Well, after the final result, the table looked like this. Daz predicting a draw and Jamie and I predicting the win let us close in on that top spot with Jamie 4 points behind. And that might have been the end of it, and Daz might have won. But there are the league predictions we all did at the beginning of August last year, where I asked the boys to give me their top 2 relegated team in the Gennaro Adrian Premier, and their top 2 playoff 4 with a winner and relegation 4 for the EFL League One, plus where they thought Wrexham would finish as a bonus. Now, the rules are that if you predict a team in the category but in the wrong place, you get a point. But if you get the right category and the right place, you get 2 points. There were massive bonuses for getting absolutely everything right, which needed to say none of us did. So first, the Gennaro Adrian League predictions. Jamie predicted Cardiff City to come first, Swansea City to come second. Daz predicted Cardiff City to come first, Swansea City to come second. And I predicted Swansea City to come first and Cardiff City to come second. And the relegation, at Christmas, we all changed our mind and went for Cardiff Met to be relegated. The actual results, of course, were Cardiff City came top, Britain Ferry came second, and Cardiff Met got relegated. So, Jamie made 4 points, Daz made 4 points, and I made 3 points, taking the totals to Daz with 70, Jamie with 66, and me with 62. Moving on to the EFL League. First of all, the top 2 places, Birmingham City. Jamie said Birmingham City to come first, Wycombe Wanderers to come second. Daz said Wycombe Wanderers to come first and Birmingham City came second, and I said Birmingham City come first and Bolton Wanderers to come second. Of course, we know the actual result was Birmingham first and Wrexham second, which means Jamie gets 2 points. Daz only gets 1 point for Birmingham City being in second, and I got 2 points, which now meant that Daz was at 71, Jamie was 68, 3 points behind, and I was on 64. Next to the playoff places, Jamie got Stockport County third, Bolton Wanderers fourth, Charlton Athletic fifth, and Wrexham sixth, with Wrexham to win. Daz had Huddersfield Town third, Peterborough United fourth, Lincoln City fifth, and Bolton Wanderers sixth, with Peterborough United to win. And I had Stevenage third, Huddersfield Town fourth, Barnsley fifth, and Peterborough United sixth, with Stevenage to win. Needless to say, none of those 3 teams are going to win the playoffs, so there's no points for that. But the actual one was Stockport County, Charlton Athletic, Wycombe Wanderers, and Leyton Orient, which meant that Jamie got 3 points, Daz got none, and I got none, which meant that Daz and Jamie are now both on 71 points, and I was on 64, lagging behind. Moving to the relegation zone, Northampton Town. Jamie said Northampton Town, Cambridge United, Shrewsbury Town, and Crawley Town. Daz said Mansfield Town, Crawley Town, Burton Albion, and Shrewsbury Town. And I said Cambridge United, Burton Albion, Shrewsbury Town, and Crawley Town. Actual final positions: Crawley came 21st, Bristol came 22nd, Cambridge came 23rd, and Shrewsbury Town came 24th. Which means that Jamie got 3 points, Daz got 3 points, and I got 3 points. No changes then, which means Daz had 74, Jamie had 74, and I had 67. The final bonus one, where would Wrexham finish? We all got that completely wrong. Jamie said 6th, Daz said 16th, and I said 10th, which means we get no points. So that means that the final totals after the predictions are Daz with 74 points, Jamie with 74 points, and myself with 67 points. Now, the rules are that if you're equal on points, it goes down to actual predictions of exact scores and how many you've got right in the season, aka bullseyes. Now, I obviously got 7, so I'm way out of it. Jamie, you had 11 bullseyes in the season. So to win, Daz needs to have more than 11 bullseyes, and Daz got 14. Congratulations, Daz, on the bullseye rule. Well done for retaining the trophy. A 52.52% success rate. A little bit down on last year. 1 question's on everyone's lips, Daz. How the fuck did you manage to do that for a second year running?
I mean, you can only beat what's in front of you, I think is the like I said, I was genuinely worried about those predictions because at the beginning of the year, I jumped, this is not even me preparing for potentially losing the title. I had no idea about any of these teams. I've heard, I know of Bolton, I know of Birmingham and stuff like that, but I wasn't nowhere near as prepped. So there was a lot of guesswork in that prediction. So I wasn't surprised that Jamie managed to make more of a fist of that bit. So no, I'm very grateful that my consistency throughout the year and my 1-0s, no matter how much you mock me, they came good. So my finger was on the pulse enough, just enough. And luckily, again, and I will probably echo this from last year, because there aren't too many Welsh game predictions, my head and heart dilemma is a lot easier for me than it is for you guys. So I was able to say negative things about Wrexham a lot easier and I did make some Welsh predictions that, yeah, I probably in reality should have. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the difference. That's the difference. But I'll take it. And if it saves on postage, I'll just keep it here.
Well, I just need to get you engraved with your name on it because obviously there's an engraving on the side with your name on it.
Yeah. So there's the one on there already. So it's just plenty of room for a few more of my name on there.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Lovely.
Jamie. Commiserations on getting so close. You were absolutely right when you said earlier that if Lincoln would have knocked in 1 goal on Saturday, you'd have won. That's how close it was because you'd have got a bullseye and you'd have got and you've got an extra point, so you'd have won with 75 points. The big question is, I mean, what a fantastic comeback! Because as you said, you were way behind me mid-season. Are you disappointed that you came so close after such a fantastic fight?
Look. Congratulations, Daz. Oh shit, I forgot his video now. No. Hey, look. When you asked me at the start, was I bothered? And I was like, no, I'm not bothered. As you were going through that, then I'm fucking furious. I'll be honest. I mean, you know how competitive I am, and seeing it there now in those numbers, I am fuming. Yeah, no, look, congratulations, Daz. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how. I don't understand the rules of this game. I don't know if you do, but I don't really understand all these, if you get bonus points for wearing green on a Thursday and all that shit. But I trust you to manage it, and I'm going to trust that you're right here. Like you said, I was miles behind, and I was genuinely worried because I know what you're like, and I was dreading a forfeit, I'll be honest. So... To have beaten you is first and foremost is the most important thing, and then to have literally, got equal points, and it came down to, basically three bullseyes. I'm reasonably happy with that, but we absolutely now have to think of a forfeit for you.
Yes.
Well, for the second year,
we could dress you up like a Muppet, but oh no, hang on, you've already done that. Either like what you're wearing here, or I've just noticed in the bottom right-hand corner of your office there, are you auditioning for some Village People concert or something? What the hell's all that high vis and what's it all about?
It's my work. It's my work stuff.
What do you work as, Mr. Tumble?
Yes, I do. Yes. Hello. For the second year in a row, I get the wooden spoon after an appalling end to the season. I think I got 8 of the last 9 wrong at the end of the season, which is terrible. But
Right.
me backing Charlton totally wrecked any chance of them winning. So that's where I'm going to take my warmth from.
Bullshit.
Which
Bullshit. Right. Stop right there. Stop right there. Right. When we did this last year, we didn't have as many listeners and viewers as we've got this year, right? So now it's over to you, viewers and listeners. Now, listen, as much as he drives me mad, sorry, there's a fly flying around. As much as he drives me mad, as much as I'm overjoyed at beating him, let's keep it, I don't want anything that's going to hurt him or well, I won't say humiliate him, but hurt it. I don't want anything that's going to hurt him or get him arrested or anything like that. Nothing permanent like a tattoo. But hit the comments, message me, us, email, whatever you want. Come up with some suggestions on what this Muppet can do for a forfeit. Not only for losing this season, but last season, because we never got through, well, other than naming his team for this year, we never really did a forfeit for last year. So you're owed 2 forfeits. So I'm going to open it up to our listeners and our viewers to come up with some suggestions, and then me and Daz will work something out. But you are absolutely doing a forfeit this time.
Well, that's it for the chip shop for another season. But of course, we'll throw open the doors again in August. And you thought this year was difficult, Dennis.
Your sister-in-law has just typed on her phone and shown me a forfeit for you. Anal beads.
Daz sneaking the cup in. Enjoy the trophy for another year, Daz. I'm sure it's pride of place in the toilet.
Yeah, well done, Daz.
I just put my name on it. There we go. So there we go.
So we'll open the doors again in August, and we'll see if any of us can finally wrestle that trophy out of Daz's hands.
Come and see the rest with me, and you will swear that you have seen a vision. We don't just know they feel when they're beaten by McNeil. We're off to the second division.
The season may have come to a close, but we still have a bit to go on about with all the playoffs affecting who gets to play Wrexham next season. Cymru men and women still have games to play, including the first ever major tournament for Cymru women as they travel to Switzerland for the Euros. Wrexham men and women will have pre-season tours, plus all the usual news around all this. So we'll be here throughout the summer with some strategic breaks mixed in, as I realise we've not stopped at all for 2 years, which is absolutely incredible. So we definitely need a break. You've been listening to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast, one of the greatest Welsh supporters flags in the universe. If you have enjoyed listening to us, please support the podcast, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You can find us on audio on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube Music. You can go onto our social media, such as X, Threads, and Blue Sky at Tweet More Chips, or drop us an email, eatmorechipspodcast, or one word, at gmail.com. Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, Eat More Chips Podcast, and on Facebook, search for the Eat More Chips Podcast group. You can leave us a review if the platform you're listening on lets you do so, and if you have anything particularly you'd like us to discuss, please feel free to drop us a line. Our thanks, as always, to the North Wales folk band Harvesters and their 1978 Wrexham football song. Next week, it's the 3rd annual Golden Potato Awards, where we pick our favourite players and moments from the last 10 months. So best get that ball dress out of mothballs. Of course, none of this would be possible without the other 2 members of the conclave, who are the real power breakers at Eat More Chips. So, thanks to Cardinal Jamie the Flatulent.
My pleasure. Come on, people. Forfeit ideas. Let's have them.
And congratulations to Master Friar 2024-25, Cardinal Daz the Pious.
I'll get some holy water in this later, and I'll but bless you all. Bless you all.
I've been Mother Superior Welsh Techie, and until next week, come on, Cymru, and come on the town.